لباسمون هم عوض نکردیم.
من عوض کردم. خیلی مهمه که بچه فکر نکنم ما توی 4 تا ضبط می‌ریم. واسه شروع پیشنهاد نمی‌کنم لباسا رو.
این لباسا رو حداقل 2 ماه باید کار شروع کرده باشید. با مامانتون بگید درتون بخیر.
آقا
صبر کن دیگه. من از دیشب برای شروع این
من میگم زمین صافه، بعد تو بگو نه. باشه خود.
خب بچه‌ها باد پلاگاتون رو بس کنید. پوشکاتون رو بپوشید. باد پلاگاتون رو بس کنید که بالاخره اون چیزی که همه منتظرش بودیم، اون اتفاقی که باید همیشه میافتاد بالاخره افتاد. براتون در مورد فیسبوک قبلا توضیح دادم. ان شاءالله رعد و برق بزنه کلش بریزه. زمین چیه؟
خوشی شما.
اگه روش شما باشه چی میشه؟
همه میسوزیم. کوها، درخت‌ها، جنگل‌ها همه میسوزن.
تموم شد.
این دوتا دارن دانشمندان، پیج اینستاشون هم فالو نکنید. خودشون اوسکو.
اینا مال یوبلی ان.
یوبلی که
یه خودمون سالها منتظر همچین قضیه بودیم. قشنگ معلومه نمیتونستن که چیز کنن اینا رو کنار هم دیگه بذارن. اگر عقل دارید دستا بالا. آفرین. حالا بی عقلا لطفاً کم کم خودشون رو نشون بدن. آها آفرین. خب میریم ادامه برنامه.
من که برخورد. زمین صافه.
ثابت میکنیم خودمون میریم ثابت میکنیم زمین صافه.
ما یه چیز دیگر ثابت میکنیم.
I don't think. I know for a fact it's a globe.
The Earth is flat.
It's like we have this picture of reality that's a big puzzle piece, and then one of those pieces just wasn't fitting.
یه سری دانشمندن، بقیه فلت ارترن. میدونی که فلت ارتر اصولا نمیتونه دانشمند باشه چون چیزی این بالا نیست.
I'm not. The evidence is so much.
Nobody wants to be a flat earther, but if you showed me incontrovertible evidence, I
would. بذار بشنویم چی میگه.
Who wants to ridicule?
Where do you hope you get from the discussion with the other side?
I'd like to tear them to pieces.
گفته چه امیدی داری از این صحبتی قراره اینجا باشه؟ فلت ارتر بود. گفتش میخوام جرواجرشون کنم. یارو فکر کنم با زنجیر بیارن تو.
I'm Jim Underdown, Executive Director of the Center for Inquiry West in Los Angeles and the chair of the CFI Investigations Group.
I'm Spencer Marks, one of the senior members of the CFI Investigations Group, Science Advocate.
I am Ali Nayeri. I'm a theoretical physicist and I'm with the University of Irvine.
فیزیسیست، کارگردان و اون یکی هم فکر کنم هوافضا بود اگه اشتباه کنم. خب حالا بریم ببینیم فلت ارتر چیکاره.
I'm Wendell Walton. I'm a Chief Learning Officer for a young startup.
Chief Learning Officer for a startup.
I'm Shelley Lewis. I'm a graduate of West Point, critical thinker, and jumped out of airplanes.
تفکر کننده. فکر میکنه خانم.
Is Dan the waterman in the drinking water filtration industry and a truth seeker.
آب فیلتر. قشنگ مشخصه اینا میتونن گو بخورن یعنی. و اسمش چیه؟ شغل دومش هم پیدا کردن حقیقت بود. تو روت سیکر.
Earthers on the left and my globe earthers on the right. Step forward is true for you.
خیلی حالا این نمیشه فلت ارتر اسمه گلوب ارتر ساینتیست. اینا دانشمندن بچه.
The earth was created by a higher power.
Well, I've been a Christian for 30 years, so the Bible is a flat earth book. You have to take it literally. Like, for example, in Isaiah, when it talks about how the earth is like a clay wax seal that's stamped with upturned edges, that's just not some fancy story. That's a simile. It is like.
Right? Absolutely. And in Isaiah it talks about too, and I'm a Christian, he who sits upon the circle of the earth. There's a difference between a circle and a ball.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
If you look at the original Hebrew, it means disc. There's over 200 scriptures in the Bible that point to a flat earth.
خیلی جالبه که تنها مذهبی‌ها، کسایی که فکر میکنن یه قدرت بزرگتری زمین رو ساخته، فلت ارتر بودن. این خیلی برام جالبه.
It's sort of like the God of the gaps. Once, people used to believe that lightning was God's wrath and throwing these lightning bolts, but once we understood it was a natural process, God shrank a little bit more because now we couldn't attribute those lightning bolts to God. We had to attribute that to the real science. The other thing, the point about the Bible specifically for me is, why is that one particular text the correct one? You choose to believe that, and that's fine, but there's so many other writings and so many other books, so why weren't they correct? Why is just the Bible correct?
Well, what you'll find in a lot of these ancient religions.
گفتش که چرا اون یک خط از بایبل انجیل، چرا فقط اون یک خط اونو چرا فقط قبول دارید؟ این همه کتاب که گفته که اون کتاب داره حقیقتو میگه. و یه چیزی، این یارو خیلی جای خطرناکی نشسته ایست. هر لحظه امکان داره گازش بگیرم و اینم تبدیل به یه فلت ارتر بشه.
My name is Wendell. I am a logical, biblically based, and scientific... biblically based and scientific flat earther. I didn't start out, and no one starts out as a flat earther, but I had a lot of questions. So I actually got to the point where I had to go out and put my own eyeballs on it.
تیتاب میدم به اینا ثابت کنن زمین صافه. بابا صافه یه گرد زندگی تو کن دیگه.
So we went out to an observation at Salton Sea.
آره زمین صافه. نمیبینه یه اسکول. از اینجا تا اونجا صافه.
And things just didn't add up down there. So we've gone back probably a dozen times, and I can guarantee you it didn't add up.
خب بچه خوندید. علی برای
add up down there. So we've gone back probably a dozen times, and I can guarantee you that there is no curvature over distance.
The internet has played an important role in confirming my view of this topic.
That's the problem.
ساینتیست خیلی خوب گفت. مشکل همینه.
That's the problem.
Well, we have the advantage of information today that's outside of channels 2, 4, and 7 and the few networks that are corporately owned. It's pretty easy to say YouTube isn't research, but when you spend enough time, you're picking up quite a bit. And with the discussion groups, panels, we've gone against opposition. We've opposed ourselves. Surprisingly enough, Flat Earth is its own worst enemy.
این یوتیوبر خوبی میشد اگه بخواد بشینه صحبت کنه، ولی من اونجوری که اولش اومد صحبت کرد فکر کردم فقط چون ساکت هم بود کلشو فکر کردم اومده اینجا فقط گاز بگیره یکی رو.
You know, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, never believe anything you read in the newspaper, right? He told that to me. Now, with the age of the internet, it's like, you know, how much of this misinformation are you getting there?
با بزرگم بهم گفتش که تو روزنامه چی میخونی قبول نکن، همه شعر و ورده. الان بزرگش اینترنت داره راست میگه.
دانشمندای بدبخت چقدر سرپا نگه دارن.
Okay, this is at the core of the issue of why there are so many flat earth believers out there right now. The problem is the information from someone who decides to start a website or produce a YouTube video is not reliable. When I have a toothache, I go to a dentist. When my car breaks down, I go to a mechanic. When you have questions about cosmology, you should go to an astrophysicist, you should go to a physicist, you should go to people who have spent years and years studying these ideas, not some 6-minute YouTube video. There is a percentage of people that if they saw a YouTube video that was not within their scientific chops to refute on the face of it, would believe anything out there.
دیگه خودتون خوندید، این واقعا نیازی به توضیح نداره. اگه بخوام بگم دقیقاً همون حرفا رو میزنم. اگر یه چیزی رو میخواید برید دنبال کسی که اون کارشه.
Is NASA.gov has their own documents out there that we get to vet, which is through the Freedom of Information Act. And would you agree that NASA documents, if they're on display, that we should be able to go and research inside there?
NASA is not proving that the Earth is flat.
Well, they say it in 14 of their documents.
You should read what NASA says, and you should listen to what NASA
I would
says.
love to see your NASA evidence that the Earth is
It's
flat.
only their contradictory issues
Okay,
that
let's
bring
see.
us here.
We're all familiar with the Earthrise photo, right? The Earth is rising over the moon. We're all familiar with it. That's NASA. You can go out to NASA's site. You can download the original, right?
I already know what you're going to ask.
So you bring up the luminance on it, and you can see where it's cut out and pasted there.
They're showing us doctored images that are clearly doctored, The blue marble is a very famous image from 1972. When you talk to the artist from NASA, his name is Robert Simmons, he talks about exactly how it was created from data, and it's not a photograph whatsoever. He added clouds,
Let me explain.
he added a highlight of the sun.
If you take, you know, on your phone, most phones have that panoramic image. When you do that, you're taking a series of pictures, and the phone cleverly stitches that
just
together.
saying how it's presented. It's presented as a real
So when
photograph.
NASA takes real photos and they either clean them up for color or they stitch them together so it's one large image, it doesn't mean they're CGI.
You're talking about
میگن که عکسایی که از زمین هست اگر دقت کنید کات اوت روشه و این عکس‌ها رو همه میدونن که هیچ دوربین نتونسته که عکس کامل بگیره از واسه همین یک سری عکس گرفتن اینا رو به هم چسبوندن. بجز اون 2 تا عکس هستش فکر کنم از رو زمین که یه دونه‌شو از رو ماه تونستن بگیرن. دقیق نیست این چیزایی که اینا گفتن. نمیدونم. گفتم چیزایی که از اینجا نگفتم نمیتونن، گفتم نمیتونن.
آره.
اشتباه گفتم. اینا رو نذار از اینجا بذار. اینا به این گیر دادن که عکس کات اوت داره، جای کاتش معلومه، چسبونده عکس با هم دیگه زمین اینجوری. و اینکه اون عکس رو که از زمین از رو ماه گرفتن اینجوری اومدن زمین صافه رو اومدن
چرا جدا ناسا یه عکس کامل از زمین نمیگیره، دوربینش داره.
حالا ان شاءالله خودمون زیرنویس شدهشو می‌بینیم بیشتر متوجه شیم.
What shape would you say you think the Earth is?
It appears to me to be a stationary plane, as opposed to the vastness of infinity of space. I would find it to be an ice plane where we
اسم اعتقادشون فیکه دیگه.
have a localized sun and our environment thrives there. You know, these particular people have misled us on television. This is a brilliant opportunity to speak. We've been suppressed, censored by mainstream media. Alternative media is just a thing of beauty for me.
ناسا برای چی اصلا اومد بیاد دور؟
آره.
چی بهش میرسه؟
چی بهشه؟
مردم نترسن زمین صاف. خب زمین صاف از اولش میگفتن زمین
یعنی
صافه.
نمیخواد واقعیت رو که ما رو اینجا زندانی کردن، ما مثلا موش آزمایشگاهی
رفتن بالا دیدن گرد اومدن گفتن گرد دیگه، چه نیازی بود بگن صافه؟ صاف نیست همون.
As uneducated.
I'm running.
قاعدتا این سه تا نباید میرفتن نشستن.
الان گفتش واقعا فکر میکنم ما تحصیل نکردیم.
Well, they certainly think they're educated.
And they're following quite a bit of, you know, the university system, what we call scientism.
Right, scientism.
Obviously is the belief in what's written, where we tend to be exploring in the field.
تازه ببین اون سه تا احترام گذاشتن و نگفتن اینا.
آره. چون این این دختره مثلا رفته دانشگاه، این یارون چیکار کرده؟ یکی آب داره فیلتر میکنه.
دانشون گرم اون سه تا.
I can only hope they're uneducated as opposed to disingenuous.
I don't think you guys are uneducated. I think you're wrongly educated.
I think the problem...
اصلا دهنشون رو باز میکنن گل بلبل میریزه بیرون.
گفتش که من فکر نمیکنم شما تحصیل نکنید، ایشون اشتباه تحصیل.
دقیقاً اصلا.
problem with what I've seen in the flat earth crowd is that it's not that they're undereducated, but they, instead of looking at evidence and letting the evidence guide to where the ultimate conclusion is, they start with a conclusion and then they try to cherry pick evidence to support their pre-drawn conclusion. They cast away all the bits of evidence that actually is contrary to their belief system.
I think that you're very well educated as well as you are Jim.
Certainly Ali is. He's probably got the best education of all of us.
Exactly, and he paid for it too. But more and more...
چه حرف بدی زد.
اینو بگی بزنید اینا رو.
ماماش بگیر بگیش اینجا نشسته.
کمش اینجوری بگیر.
I'm hoping to be able to tell our side of the story from the inside out. So many times, flat earthers are depicted from the outside in, and I want to be able to share with others.
چرا ساید بوب زد؟ میخوام گوش کنم، با صورتش رو ببینم گوش کنم. چه زاویه‌ای؟
Data that proves the earth is not what we've been told. So when I was 12 years old, I went to space camp, and I met Alan B. Shepard.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be the first woman to walk the
کم
moon.
ترک اعتیاده. من یه روز می‌خواستم پسندشم. اوه چقدر خوب. دست بزنید بزنید. من 5 سالی که ترک کردم.
For me, I'm a glober. I went into this completely wanting it to be true. And my husband told me, he saw this thing about the fake moon landing. And I was like, you're absolutely crazy. There's no way that the moon landings are fake. And then in 2010, my husband was killed. And so I never really developed that until around 2014 when Flat Earth kind of came back up. And that little voice inside my head said, remember the fake moon landings? Remember when that was brought to my attention? And then I started really critically analyzing that. And I would say, just looking at that evidence, if they can lie about the moon landings, they can certainly lie about pictures and satellites and other things. And so I started going down that rabbit hole of studying. So that was my influence from my husband.
How many lies does it take to make a liar, right?
And being really
خب تا اینجا مشکل زنان رو فهمیدیم. شما یه نفر رو که خیلی دوست دارید وقتی از دست میدید شروع کنید به توهم‌های مزخرف زدن برای اینکه اون سوراخی توی زندگیتون ایجاد شده پر کنید.
The timing of your conversions is interesting to me. 20 years ago, the flat earth world was tiny and insignificant. Enter the advent of the internet, YouTube, online discussion groups, all these new available places where you could find information about it.
دستم خورد اینترنتم قطع شد. شما قبلا این بسته رو خریداری کردید. یعنی چی؟ یعنی دیگه نمیذارید بخرم؟ یعنی چی این حرف که الان زد؟
نمیدونم نریده بودم تو.
بریم. با شکلات و
world was tiny and insignificant. Enter the advent of the internet, YouTube, online discussion significant.
Wow! Okay!
This is true that the evidence as you looked were not robust evidence. And the sources you used, they were not reliable sources again. But my problem is that, and I like you guys that you are very skeptical, but at the same time, you are not skeptical about your belief system.
You
that
keep
should
going
have come
back.
first.
You think that that's my foundation for why I believe the earth is flat. And I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Okay.
I have evidence that proves it's flat.
What type
or proves
of evidence?
It's not a ball.
What type of evidence?
we're being misled. We're being deliberately misled by mainstream
Now,
media.
what's your evidence you're
We
thinking?
see too far. We see too far. We should not be able to see. I live in Dana Point.
Okay.
I can see San Clemente Island, which is 60 miles away.
So what?
What do you mean, so what?
No, I'm
It's
on the
1,100
beach. I'm
feet
on the
tall.
beach.
It is
What do you mean by
tall.
so what?
I'm on the beach.
Yeah.
Can you see a ship which is going?
We're not talking
Let's talk
that.
about the ship that goes
Yes,
over the curvature
okay.
of the earth. I love
So-
that. So, science has said that when I see a ship go out of my
تو چی
field of
میخندی؟ اصلا دارم میبینم
view, it's going over the curvature of the earth, correct?
Yes.
But then I bring my P900 up, and guess what? I can zoom it back in.
Not
So
all
is
the
it
time.
going over the curvature of the earth or not?
Absolutely.
Oh, not all the
No, you
time?
can't.
Not all the time?
No, you don't see all the ship. The bottom part of the ship
Yes.
is hidden by the
At that
curvature.
distance, you shouldn't see the top
At
of it
all.
either.
If the Earth were truly flat, there would be really hardly any limit. You would be able to stand at the top of the Empire State Building and look towards Chicago, a mere 1,000 miles away, and see the lights of Chicago at night.
No,
Why wouldn't
because you have an atmospheric disturbance.
Very thick.
I've been
Water
into
alone.
astronomy since I was 10.
It's faulty logic. It's completely
خیلی دارن چیزای اسمش چیه؟ علمی سختی میگن. علی یه دور همینجا ازت معذرت خواهی میکنم.
من علی رو دارم تصور می‌کنم عرق میکنه تایپ میکنه.
از علی حمایت هیچ راهی نیست که بتونید از علی حمایت کنید ولی از علی حمایت
از ما حمایت کنید انقدر از علی حمایت کردید.
دست علی درد نکنه.
دارم
همین دوباره
می‌کنم.
ازش تشکر میکنیم.
Consensus is possible.
هم عقیده شدن علمی امکان پذیر هست یا نه؟
consensus is possible.
What is the question?
I don't understand the question.
Scientific consensus is possible.
وای!
سوال نفهمیدم.
نه اینا هم نمیدونستن کانسنسس یعنی چی.
I've been spending a lot of time arguing with people that argue the other side. And I found that surprisingly, consensus always wins. It was shocking to me that the group with the majority has an incredible advantage. As scientists, flat earthers, truthers, punks, we're at an incredible disadvantage.
Let's talk about scientific consensus for a second. You're never going to get 100% of anyone. There is scientific consensus on a global earth. There's scientific consensus on evolution. A lot of big issues.
Use the word theory.
No. Do you know what a theory in science is an extremely...
And a fact is a fact.
Don't mistake this word theory.
You are.
In science, it's not conjecture, it's not...
It's an explanation. By definition, it's an
All theories. In science, the word theory is the highest level that you can give something because it's so well supported.
What about a fact?
That is a fact. It's
not a fact you would call it a fact.
You know why? Do you know why? Because in science, there's always room for improvement. There's always room to find to tweak and find better information.
So that is how science works.
It gets better refined over time, as opposed to flat earth theory, which never gets refined. It simply is what it is.
New ideas have limited access to media and limited exposure. Until we're in university curriculums, we will continue to appear uneducated.
Well, that's not true. In the history of science, we had many occasions that the ideas, it was not welcomed by the society. Einstein was one of them. Galileo was one of them. But if your theory is an authentic one, and it can go through this hardship of scientific method, eventually will win.
I used to believe that science was after the truth, right? We all just want to know what the truth is. Science has been trying so hard to divorce itself from the idea of a creator when God's intent was to create science to lead you to him. You know, sometimes things seem supernatural that we are able to explain later through, science. Okay, I understand. But there are other things as well that are supernatural, that go beyond the natural, that we can only explain through believing in a creator. Right?
This is my big issue with scientific approach and non-scientific approach. You are absolutely right. In science, we are after the truth. And we are hoping by each day we're getting closer and closer to the truth. We never get there. Never.
Well, I know that's true for you. And
this is science. That's you guys. You think you do have the truth. Now let's look at the evidences. As you were mentioning, you do have the conclusion, let's find the evidences. Science doesn't work that way.
That's not true. That is not true.
Well, you are saying you are referring to Jesus, who many billions of people do not believe, including myself.
And many more billions do.
So what?
So who's right?
Who's gay?
You are gay.
چه سوالی بود پرسیدن آن؟ دقیقاً سوزگی یا سوزگی. میگه داری با مدرک تو میذاری جیزز که خیلی ها بهش باور ندارن. خیلی هم باور دارم. میگه خب پس حق با کیه؟ سوزگی.
سوال شمالی پرسه. تو در جریان سوال شمالی هستی؟ مثلا که شما همینجوری
نه شما تو خیلی تئوریا از طرف تو برای شمال شنیدم که خیلی جالب و جدیدن برای من که کل عمرم و شمال بودم.
اصطلاحی که این سوالای بیخود هستن. کجایی؟ مثلا اینجوریه که
آره از اونها زیاد داریم.
اومدی خونه‌ام دیگه.
آره اینا میگن سوالا زیاد. بهش میگفتیم سوال شمالی ولی معروفه که ما تو شمال از این سوالا زیاد میپرسیم.
That is not true at all.
That is what you are doing.
بهش دقت نکرده بودم آشغال. من هر وقت میرفتم خونه مامان بزرگم میگفت اومدی؟
You're like a round hard candy. Conclusions require knowledge. I just want to check in. How are you guys feeling? How's this discussion going?
I kind of feel like I want to develop some of this stuff a little bit more. It feels high level, but I feel like there's so much that I haven't really even touched base on.
Well, I mean, I certainly didn't think that anybody on either side was going to flip.
Well, there's still time.
There's still time. I have hope for you.
خیلی مادرش خرابه. ببین فیلیپ بچه‌ها به دو معنیه، یا به معنی اینکه نظرش عوض بشه یا به معنی اینکه اعصابش خورد بشه. به جفت اینا میگم فیلیپ. این یارو گفتش فکر نمی‌کنم که کسی بتونه توی این صحبت فیلیپ کنه، حالا به هر معنی. یارو میگه هنوز وقت است که به هر دو معنی خیلی مزخرف میشه. یعنی یا داره میگه برت میگردم یا فلت ارترت میکنم به یه ساینتیست داره اینو میگه، یا میگه که میرینم تو اعصابت صبر کن.
Hey, what was that?
He flipped! Wendell, welcome aboard.
یا صبر کن.
Hey, what was that?
He flipped! Wendell, welcome aboard. Welcome.
حواسش داره چیکار میکنه؟
The greatest moment in television history right there.
Is trustworthy.
ناسا راستگوه؟
So, I mean,
ساینتیستا بودم نمیرفتم بشینم چون قطعا اطلاعات محرمانه‌ای دارن که نیاز نمیدونن انسان ها بدونن.
along with certain things, and they may have individuals that lie or deceive or something, but as a general organization, they're looking for the truth.
Yeah, the idea that NASA and the government is lying to us about the shape of the Earth is the height of conspiracy theories. In order for this to be true, the literally hundreds of thousands of people who at some point over the last 50 or 60 years would had to be somewhat complicit in this, and nobody spills the beans at all, is on the face of it completely unbelievable.
نکته جالبی رو بهش اشاره کرد. گفتش توی این 50-60 سال ناسا، بیشتر از 50-60 ساله، نمیدونم حالا این یارو گفتش توی این تایم، الان شما هر شرکتی رو ببینید از یه گوشش یه چیزی لیک میشه. میگه غیر ممکنه که بتونن انقدر بسته تو انقدر مدت طولانی خودشون رو نگه دارن.
The private does not know what the general is doing. There's compartmentalization happening all the time.
Of course.
So it wouldn't be that far-fetched. Has the government ever lied to us is really the question at stake.
We all agree on that.
But now we,
Common ground.
now we have NASA.gov.
دست دادن یارو خیلی دوست داشتم. ببین اون چجوری اومد اون چجوری دست
But now we,
Common ground.
now we have NASA.gov, right? And we, absolutely, they're not lying about anything. They're completely transparent. Everything is true. We'd be foolish to
There's
think
a
that's
difference
true.
here. I'm sorry. This is a fallacy here. There is
Not a fallacy.
I'm sure it is.
Go
See,
ahead.
you were talking about a government. Now you're talking about an agency of the
NASA.gov.
government. But this agency is scrutinized by thousands and thousands of scientists around the globe. You are dealing with smart people, believe me. You are dealing with smart people.
I don't deny that.
So it is very hard to do that. Once or twice, maybe. Not for the all time.
Raise your hand if you think we went to the moon.
Distribute.
تو فکر کنی اصلا رفته ما؟
داشت میگفت
نه نظر تو.
سنگ آوردن از ما آقای عنصری که روی زمین نیست.
نظر تو.
قابلیتشو داره. اسپیس ایکس میدونی چقدر موشک با انسان پرت کرده هوا؟ چرا نتونه بره؟
تن رفته.
Scientists around the world, and not one of those geologists have said, "What is this?"
Been
This is
proven to be
some-
fake.
And also and collected on the ice in Antarctica and
Yeah,
in the Arctic as
absolutely.
well. Those are collected. You don't have to go to the moon to get moon rocks. As a matter of fact, all U.S. Air Force photography prior to 1958 shows a flat Earth. Only NASA shows
That's
a
not
sphere.
true.
That's
That is
absolutely
absolutely not
true,
true.
Jim. I wouldn't lie to you.
And the other
NASA's lying to you, my friend.
The other bit of proof
Not myself.
is we have a laser retroreflector on the moon.
That we're using now.
We still use to this day.
It's sitting there.
You can find to the inch how far away the moon
No
is.
pictures of home.
That only is there. By the
No,
way,
there are not.
My question to you is, why? Why would all these honest, hardworking people perpetuate this massive fraud? Why would they do this?
سوال آخر رو پرسید. چرا باید به شما دروغ بگن؟ تو که هستی که بهتون دروغ بگن.
من که از اول برنامه اینو پرسیدم.
همون دیگه میگم.
چرا واسه من اینجوری نکردی ها؟ من به حتما کلا
که سوال خودمون بود. میگم بالاخره اینو آوردش وسط. خوشحال شدم که سوال قشنگ تو آورد وسط. اسکول.
من کلا اونجوری بپوشم تو اینجوری بزنی رو میز خاطر من.
I can put myself in the mindset of the other side.
for me, I think the correct way to do any kind of investigation or to examine things is by literally putting yourself in that mindset of the other person. So I do that. I disagree with your position, but I completely understand from your perspective what you're saying.
The trouble I have understanding your perspective is, in the modern world, unless you live in a cave somewhere, you have to believe in science implicitly. I met a flat earther, a young woman who said, I don't trust anything that science does. And that's a problem because human beings can't replicate the whole body of science every single generation. At some point, you have to trust what's already been discovered and proven and move on to the next thing. Otherwise, we're not going to advance at all. I mean, when you turn that key ignition in your car, you expect the car to start out.
And not blow up.
And not blow up, because science puts you in that position. So it's really hard to understand how people would know in their hearts that science achieves wonderful things and then just jumping ship when it comes to this other issue.
We're not drawing conclusions. We understand the mechanisms that made that car work. There is no theories and no disputed conclusions involved there. It's not a good analogy. Can I admit a great compromise that we have to experience being against the grain people is we have to literally sit in a group and decide whether or not we can afford to have an opinion, and that's tough.
I agree with you there, because we're the same thing. I mean, I think skeptics go through this and atheists go through this. I don't believe in God. When I'm around religious people, I take a chance socially when I tell them I'm an atheist. So I know it takes some courage to follow your beliefs, and I appreciate that. But I think I've done a lot of research in that venue too. And it's not something I choose to believe in. It's something I have to believe in based on the evidence.
See, what I get from you guys is that seeing is believing. So how come you believe in God or Jesus? You haven't seen neither of them, right?
خیلی خوب پرسید. فهمیدی چی شد؟ خوابی؟
فکر بودم.
صبر کن میخوام بیدارت کنم.
نزن تو گوش.
باش.
چی پرسید؟
گفتش که شما میگید اون چیزی که میبینیم و باور میکنیم، نه اون چیزی که به ما گفتن. چجوری به خدا و جیزس اعتقاد دارید؟
I've seen evidence, though.
Well, exactly. So we are looking for evidence. There are many other evidences for Earth not being flat. My point is that these experiments clearly show that the Earth is globe. And you don't need to go outside the globe to see its globe.
It's a theoretical...
You told me you want the evidence. If you're saying that you look only to see something, then I dispute your belief system in God and Jesus or Jehovah or Buddha or Zarathustra or anyone.
You keep going back to religion as being
Because
our
it's coming from there.
No,
You think you do have the
I
truth.
have evidence. I have evidence.
You
from
quoted
what
at the
I know.
beginning
She
of
pointed
this.
out physics.
You
I
quoted
agree.
Bible.
Of
That's
course
the
I did,
reason.
but that is not the only reason I know what the shape of the earth is, and you keep, that's fallacy.
It's not fallacy.
It is a
Actually,
fallacy.
it is not fallacy.
It is a fallacy.
یه نمیذاره دعواشی آقا
نه بهش گفتن ساندیس و تیتاب بیدیم با اونجا خیلی منتصر.
What are we hoping to get from the discussion today?
Well, I hope I would be able, particularly to the young generation, to convince them that first, they should think critically and don't believe anything. They shouldn't take anything for granted. Look at the evidences and examine those evidences. And throw away those claims that are not evidence-based. I would say, one great thing about science is its predictability. Let's for a short moment, assume that your model, this flat earth model, is correct. I don't know, what does it buy for us? What does it predict for us? So my question for you guys would be, next time, bring me something from your theory, your model, that you can predict something which the globe earth model cannot predict. Then I would change my mind.
یه چیزی که فایده داشته باشه، اصلا ارث صاف باشه که چی بشه. یه چیزی که یه پیشبینی داشته باشه، یه چیزی که با جهان بخونه. یه چیزی که این زمین صاف شما بتونه داشته باشه که گلوورت نتونه داشته باشه. اصولا داره در مورد این صحبت میکنه که اصلا زمین صاف باشه که چی؟
I don't blame people for being skeptical. I'm skeptical about a lot of different things. I applaud that instinct in you. But you have to go beyond just not believing in something. Ask the hard questions. Ask what qualifies a YouTuber, a book author, anywhere else you're getting this information. What qualifies them to make wide-ranging comments about the shape of the earth? Look, anybody who can overturn Einstein or some major theory is going to be eventually written in the halls of science for the rest of their lives. But they have to come up with the goods. They have to show good science-based evidence that what they say is true, and they have to withstand the test of time and peer review and the rigors of the scientific method.
All right. Thank you. I'm all sweaty.
Ollie, it was nice to meet you.
I'll get a hug too.
Almost neighbor.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
ببین یه مسئله اینجاست که یه سری یوتیوبر و یه سری افراد که به قول خودشون کتاب می نویسن و این داستانا مقاله و کتاب و اینا میان یه بامبولی از خودشون در میارن که زمین صافه. اونا میزنن داخل یوتیوب 1 میلیون ویو میگیرن، پولشون رو میزنن تو جیبشون، میرن ماشینشون سوارشن. بعد یه سری اسکل مثل اینا میرن میگن نه اون یه چی میدونسته. بابا اسکل، اون داره پول در میاره دیگه از اون قضیه، ول کن.
کل چیزی که میتونم بگم اینه که اگر میخواید در مورد یه چیزی بدونید
نرید تو یوتیوب
برید اون جایی که منبعشه، برید از اونی که میدونه، از اون
از اونی که درصدش یا بیشتر کتاب خونده.
اگه فلاترتری نمیدونم به چی بگم. یا اگه فلاترتری نمیدونم به چی بگم.